Welcome, everybody. My name is Brenda, and I am your host today. And this is sponsored through Whole Food Plant-Based No Oil Education and Support. And we're a pure plant pod, and we're a brand new pod. And for anyone not familiar with plant pure pods, say that 5 times. Plant pure pods. They started as a result of the overwhelming success that all the information and education and group cooking for different cities and stuff that happened that was a result of all the dedication of the Plant Pure Nation movie members. They went from town to town, low-income neighborhoods that they were eating really unhealthy and highest diseased, and they started cooking for them whole food, plant-based, no oil foods, and everybody's numbers decreased of triglycerides and cholesterol. Their A1C counts went down. Most people got off all their meds, and it was so popular and so in demand that now we have plant pure pods all over the world, and ours just officially opened 2 days ago. I'm the new pod leader, and we have a group on Facebook. You're welcome to join. We're going to be doing virtual potlucks, and we're going to be doing global outreach to schools and fairs, all kinds of things to educate people about whole food, plant-based, no oil benefits. And just to give you a real broad scope of the evidence-based backing of whole food, plant-based, no oil, there is 80,000 studies and scientific reports published about whole food, plant-based lifestyle, not necessarily with no oil, but that's a branch of it. There's 80,000 showing that a whole food, plant-based diet either prevents or reverses disease. It's a very, very well-known, established, like it's not even arguable anymore. A whole food, plant-based diet does prevent and reverse disease. It's a proven fact. And that brings me to talk about the Food Summit 2023. It was an 8-day summit. It was 4 hours a day, 32 hours total. And it was amazing. There were 45 specialists that showed up. And I was so impressed that I got the empowerment package. And I was so impressed with that I got the advanced empowerment package. And in that package is this year's updated scientific research findings and interviews with several specialists for anti-cancer foods and radical remission reports and all kinds of different things. And I've compiled the list of the 3 nutrition specialists extended interviews that I listened to, and I put together a list of the foods they talked about. And you know, I just wanted to briefly say that over the 8 days, there was 8 different topics, a different topic every day, a different disease, a different focus. And every single day, the majority of the foods that I'm going to talk to you about today were in those topics for what types of foods to eat to prevent or reverse the diseases that day was talked about. So what I'm trying to say is, like, there's a real common thread about a lot of these foods. So a lot of these foods that I'm going to point out to you which ones they are that they focused on every day. So you'll know, like, if nothing else, try to at least add these foods to your diet. And that was one thing I learned throughout those 8 days, that I didn't really have the same perspective in the beginning of the summit, is that even if you just add foods to your lifestyle, you will improve your health. If you add a half cup of beans or lentils a day to your diet, you will decrease your chances of getting cancer by 45%, just adding a half cup of beans or lentils. If you add a cup of raw or a half cup of cooked dark leafy greens, on average, you will extend your lifespan 11 years. So those are just two quick examples of like, you could not change anything about your diet and just add those two things, or one of them even, and there's amazing benefits. So this is Christy Funk. She's a medical doctor, and she was talking about her ultimate cancer kicking diet. And she was talking about how when she first started treating her cancer patients with nutrition, she had everybody staying away from soybeans, because that's what the evidence showed back then. It showed that soybeans were high in estrogen. Well, just recently they discovered that that's in complete error. The fact of the matter is soybeans do have estrogen, but the type of estrogen is the key. The type of estrogen that soybeans have actually fight cancer. It's a very, very powerful cancer fighting food. So I'm currently cooking for someone that has stage 4 multiple myeloma, and I've made her homemade tempeh. I've sprouted soybeans. I'm fermenting soybeans, making soybean hummus. She's eating raw soybean sprouts for her breakfast in her breakfast bowl. She's like making sure she gets those 3 servings, and a 3 serving, just so you know, a serving is a half cup. So if you can even get a half cup a day, that would be so helpful, but 2 to 3 is optimal. And it's especially helpful for breast cancer. But after she talked about, she treats breast cancer, so she was talking about specifically breast cancer. But the next nutritionist dietitian we're going to talk about, he also mentioned soybeans in specific fighting cancer, so it's not just for breast cancer. So now cruciferous vegetables was one of the vegetables that they talked about in every single day of preventing and reversing disease. Cruciferous vegetables are cabbage, bok choy, cauliflower, broccoli, kale. No, kale is not a cruciferous. A cruciferous vegetable, I'm forgetting all of them now. Let me look it up real quick.
Those are the big ones. That's what's important.
Yeah, well, one of the thing I wanted to point out that's so key is so broccoli is like the best cruciferous vegetable as far as vegetables go, but broccoli sprouts are 100 times more potent than broccoli. Broccoli sprouts I just started making, and I gotta be honest with you, I bought a pound bag, which is about that big, of broccoli seeds. They're tiny, tiny seeds. And it only takes 2 tablespoons of seeds to sprout a whole big jar, 32-ounce jar of broccoli sprouts. So we're talking about maybe 20 cents and a week commitment to rinse them and shake them and get all the water out and put them back on your stand 3 times a day. And it's probably like 3 cents for that whole big, huge quart container. And you only need a tablespoon a day serving to be able to effectively fight cancer with it.
Right.
So I really, really, really wanted to tell people that, because it's so cheap and they're 100 times more effective than broccoli, which in the vegetable arena is like one of the best for fighting cancer as far as the cruciferous. Now, collard greens are one that I have not, I just bought them. I know that, okay, so as far as these cruciferous vegetables go, preparing them is very important. You do not want to bake these, roast these, barbecue them. You don't want to stir fry them. If you want to get the cancer fighting benefits, the only way to do it is to steam them for 2 to 3 minutes, or ideally eat them raw. That's the only way the sulforaphane is activated. If you even steam it for too long, the sulforaphane, which is what fights cancer, will be killed, and you will not get any benefits to fight cancer. The collard greens I'm going to experiment with, because my understanding is that collard greens are extremely, extremely tough. Like in the South, when they make collard greens, it's like a whole 24-hour process because they simmer them with all these meats and different things to break down all of the fibers in the collard greens. But you either need to eat them raw or steamed for a couple minutes until they turn that bright green. You know how when you're steaming something and it gets a real brilliant color, that's when you want to stop. That's the sulforaphane activating. But
Right.
ideally, eating it raw is the best, except for cabbage. That's the only exception. Cabbage is best fermented. Now, cabbage, we were talking briefly about the gut biome, microbiome before we started this. Cabbage can be fermented, and one 32-ounce jar of fermented cabbage, which you only need cabbage and salt, and massage the salt until it makes the water and the moisture come from the cabbage, and then you pound it down in the 32-ounce jar until the moisture comes and covers up the cabbage, and then you put a fermenting weight on top of it. That jar is probably only a half of the head of cabbage, which is like $3, and then you get a nice salt. You got to make sure you got quality salt. That one jar is 16 bottles of probiotics worth of gut bugs. It's so cheap and it's so healthy for you, and it fights cancer. So it's incredible. I mean, it's like the best probiotic type fermented food you can get, and it fights cancer. So I really wanted to make sure that you guys understood there's two really cheap ways that you can fight cancer and improve your health in other ways. And that's the broccoli sprouts and the fermented cabbage. And if you start coming to the workshop next Friday, I'll be teaching how to do the fermented cabbage and fermented everything and sprouted everything gut microbiome, gut health. And just so you know, our immunity is the beginning and ending in the gut. Our gut controls our immunity. If we did not have gut bugs, we don't have immunity. People that get sick all the time don't have a healthy gut. So if you're interested in ways of improving, preventing cancer, it's also very important to build your gut health. And I will be doing a weekly series until we get through everything that I've learned about the gut. And it's a ton. There's like 12,000 studies and reports have been published this year alone. And that's in comparison of 400 over the last 40 years. So like this year has been incredibly fascinating for me because I've been studying the gut for 40 years. And it's amazing to me how the more I learn about gut health and then compare it to the cancer health and what foods help cancer and what foods help the gut, they all tie in. Another thing that I learned is, okay, so, I'm sure a lot of us cook with onions and garlic, but there's a trick for cancer fighting benefits from these. Pureed is best is as far as like bioavailability of the allium in it. But you need to remember that if you're using it for cancer fighting or any kind of health promoting benefits, don't cook it and wait at least 10 minutes after you break it open, cutting it or pureeing it, because the properties for fighting cancer and improving health do not activate until it's been in the air for at least 10 minutes. And mushrooms. One thing I didn't know about
Pardon me,
mushrooms,
Brenda.
excuse me?
Pardon me, Brenda. Of everything you said, that's new information to me. Can you expound on that onion thing a little bit?
Remember the key word stop after you chop?
I seem to remember that, yes.
So that's how I remember, is that little cliche, stop after you chop. And like setting, if you're gonna like, and if you're in a hurry and you want to hurry up and you think you might not wait long enough, set your freaking phone, because if you're using it like to make a salad dressing for cancer fighting benefits or health promoting benefits, you have to wait at least 10 minutes completely in the air before that property is activated that is so health promoting. And then you can add it to other things, but it has to be in the air for 10 minutes.
Okay, I'll cogitate on that. That's new information to me. Thank you.
There's been a lot of new information this year, yeah. So as far as mushrooms go, not all mushrooms are toxic, but as a general rule of thumb, they said to make sure to cook all mushrooms because some of them have been found to have toxic compounds, and there's still so much we don't know about mushrooms. So they suggested to not eat any mushrooms raw and cook them all. If you eat a half of your thumb, the size of half of your thumb of a button mushroom a day, you lower your chances of having cancer 69%. A small amount of mushroom in tea drops your cancer opportunity by 89%. I found a very, very awesome sustainable produced mushroom powder on Amazon, and it's about a 12-ounce bag, and it was $25. But you take a quarter teaspoon a day. That's all you need. So it's going to last me like a year. And it has 10 different mushrooms in it. It has all of the health sustaining mushrooms that are so popular right now. And it has all kinds of other mushrooms in it that I don't know about yet. So I'm not going to speak on them. But I do know that I've been studying stuff that I don't have on here too. And they talked about the benefits of mushrooms, and I actually have a mushroom recipe for you guys. It's a oyster mushroom frittata that I'm actually making tomorrow for my client, and it's really awesome because it not only has the oyster mushrooms that are cancer fighting, it also has a tofu based sauce that you pour over the potatoes and oyster frittata mix, and the tofu is very high in soybeans, so that's very cancer fighting. So it's a very rich cancer fighting recipe. I'm really excited to try it. So red grape skins. The one thing that I did not know that I learned at this summit is that red grape skins are what make the resveratrol in red wine. Everybody's saying, oh, a cup a day of red wine is so important for your health. No, actually, it's the red grape skins. It's not the wine. It's not the way it's processed. The reason why the wine has resveratrol in it is because of the skins. They have found and identified that's where it is in the grape that is so high in cancer fighting properties. Green tea, another thing I did not know. If you add just a tiny squeeze of lemon, it'll increase the cancer fighting properties of green tea, and it will decrease your cancer risk by 50% just drinking 3 cups a day. I prefer drinking matcha myself because it's the whole leaf powdered up. And so you're also getting quite a heavy dose of serving of green leafy vegetables. So green leafy vegetables was in every day of that summit as well. 2 cups of green leafy vegetables a day is the recommended minimum serving. So this next one it says this is for estrogen-based cancer. And I apologize, I do not know the differences of what cancers are estrogen-based and what are not. If you're here or if you're listening after the seminar, please do research. And if you do have estrogen-based cancer, this following list is especially helpful. It's coupled servings of cruciferous veggies. A serving, again, is a cup packed of raw or half cup cooked. And again, you don't want to steam it for over 2 minutes, or, it turns a bright green, turn it off. And then a 1/2 of a button mushroom cooked. Citrus, and they didn't specify what kind, and fiber. So it's kind of funny to talk about fiber in a whole food plant-based lifestyle because everything has fiber in it. That's like the whole thing about eating the whole plant. So if you're on a whole food plant-based diet, don't worry about it. You're getting all the fiber. If you're not, try to increase your serving of beans or lentils by a 1/2 cup a day. You can add your cruciferous vegetables that's talked about up above. Another thing that's super, super high in fiber is avocado, and it's a very, very healthy fat. And then flaxseed meal, and I want to emphasize that the meal, not the seed. If you use the seed, you're not getting any omegas or anything. It has to be the shell, the skin is very tough, and we're not able to chew it enough to activate the omegas in the seed. So it's important to have a meal, and ideally getting the seed and fresh grinding it every few days is ideal. And another thing that they talked a lot about is excess weight helps cancer thrive. Now, I don't know if there's anybody in here that, well, I do know one person in here that had cancer. I don't know if they were or weren't told this, but my client was told to eat butter, to eat half and half. They told her to put on as much fat as she could, because she was going to need it when she got cancer or with chemo. And they were saying that excess weight actually feeds the cancer. So if you do have cancer, or a way to try to prevent cancer is to definitely get your BMI ideally around 23%, body mass index, about 23%. So we come to Patrick Quillen. He's a PhD, a registered dietitian, and a CNS, and unfortunately, I don't know what that means. He said 90% of cancer is caused by lifestyle, and 1/6 of that paradigm is food choices. What do we mean by a plant-based diet? Fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, which are beans and lentils and soybeans, nuts and seeds, mushrooms, seaweed, and the last one is medicinal spices. The medicinal spice that he talked about, I will talk about in a little bit, and it's very important to always eat it with a different food item as well. So blood oranges, he talked about, as far as the list above, she mentioned citruses. He says blood oranges are superior citrus to eat. And dark berries, he said any kind of dark berry, but especially blueberry. Now, blueberry is another one of those foods that every single day, all 8 days, they said, if you don't do anything else in your diet, try to get the cup of blueberries every day, ideally wild blueberries. Wild blueberries have more nutrition in them than even organic berries. The smaller the berries, the more nutrients they have in them. The bigger the berry, they're going to be a little sweeter, but they have less of the nutrients. So the smaller the berry, the better. And another thing they said was the cruciferous, he said, is cruciferous veggies. He actually was encouraging people to even do a powdered form. I was surprised about that because my personal lifestyle choice, I don't process my foods into powder form, but he was talking about as far as the cancer fighting benefits are available in the powdered form if they're freeze dried. Do not get them if they're anything other than freeze dried. The onions and garlic, again, the stop after you chop, make sure to wait 10 minutes. And then he just mentioned citrus in general. I do want to reiterate that if you're drinking the 3 cups a day of green tea, make sure to add some citrus in there to increase the cancer fighting property of the green tea. Whole grains. Now, one thing I want to talk about whole grains, there's several things actually. So whole grains do not mean going to the store and picking up a whole grain bread that says it has 3 grams of fiber in it and you're good to go because it has some whole grains in it. That is not whole grains. Whole grains is oat groat, amaranth, quinoa, wheat berries, rye berries, spelt berries, things like that. Those are all wheat, buckwheat, whole wheat berries. Those are all whole grains. So another thing that's really important to know about the whole grain topic is you always, whole grains, beans, lentils, raw nuts, raw seeds, you got to soak them all at least overnight. If you can't soak them overnight and you're in a really severe time crunch and you really need your grain, go ahead and boil some water and then soak it for 2 hours. But ideally, soak them the night before and let them sit overnight before you cook them. I personally, for gut health, take that a step further. I sprout my grains and I ferment my grains. And again, I will be starting to teach that starting next Friday. And then he also was talking about the cabbage, which again, we talked about the fermented cabbage. And then cauliflower, and the cauliflower is one of the cruciferous vegetables. So make sure you don't steam it for more than a couple minutes. And of course, that's not going to turn a bright, vibrant color because it's white, unless you got the orange or the purple cauliflower, but still just keep it like a couple minutes or ideally raw. I personally prefer it riced. I grate it the night before and I put it in my breakfast bowl with some grated cabbage, and I have it in my breakfast bowl with things like soybean sprouts and sprouted lentils and coconut, things like that. It's really good. And again, the broccoli sprouts, he talked about 100 times more potent for fighting cancer or just nutrition in general by 100 times. Now, one thing I found when I bought my broccoli sprouts, so for gut health, you want biodiversity, plant diversity. So I found a sulforaphane sprout seed blend on Amazon, bought a pound of that. So I'm actually right now sprouting 64-ounce jar, 2 32-ounce jars of broccoli sprouts and 2 of the sulforaphane blend. And sulforaphane is the active ingredient that you want to fight cancer and improve health. Now, the turmeric is what he was talking about, cancer fighting herb, and that is always needed to be taken with black pepper. And the black pepper has a compound called pepperine in it. And pepperine makes the turmeric like 97% more bioavailable. It is very, very hard to absorb turmeric by itself. You get about 2% of the curcumin if you do not add black pepper. So it's very helpful to add the black pepper. You can put it in your food as a grated root. You can use it a powder. I personally do mine in the morning. I do like a anti-inflammatory tonic after I have my matcha and mushroom powder. I add ginger powder, turmeric powder, pepper, Ceylon cinnamon, and that is one of my morning tonics, and it's very, very good for inflammation, very good for pain. And of course, the next one is ginger. So there you go. That is great part of that tonic. And then hot peppers, he didn't specify what kind of hot peppers. One of the things I was interested in is these spices. There's spices that fight cancer: cardamom, allspice, and cinnamon. He said that there's a book called Healing Spices, and he suggests that you use all 35 listed in there. He didn't have time to go over all of them, but the book is called Healing Spices. And again, he mentioned broccoli, even though he was saying how it's superior to eat the sprouts. Fruits and veggies as much as you can possibly tolerate. And also the turmeric and black pepper tea as much as you can tolerate. Now, that's also new information for anyone that's interested. So it used to be thought that turmeric inhibited iron absorption. That's actually been found to be incorrect. It actually increases iron absorption of non-heme iron, which is what you find in plants. Heme iron is from animal, non-heme is from plants. So along with vitamin C foods to eat with non-heme iron foods, you can also eat turmeric or drink the tea and increase the bioavailability of iron. And then again, the beans and the lentils, and of course we had talked about the fiber content of those. And when you're measuring out a half cup serving, that's I'm referring to a half cup of cooked beans and lentils. And just to remind you, it's very important to soak them. They have lectins in them, which are anti-nutrients, which actually rob nutrients in your body, make it hard for you to absorb minerals. They leach minerals from your skin. our body. So always remember to soak them, and ideally sprouting and fermenting is even better. Kale. So it's interesting about kale too. Another thing I learned new in the summit. I kept being told to eat steamed kale and not to ever eat it raw. And that is also incorrect. It's actually superior when it's raw, for especially fighting cancer. And some tricks about dealing with the fibrous nature of kale and to increase the cancer fighting properties is to take just a squirt of lemon and put the kale in the bowl with the lemon. And another trick about combating the texture of it and the fibrous nature of it is to slice it very thin. So if you're going to make a kale salad, it might take a little more time, but much more enjoyable if you do those two tricks. Is slice it really thin, put it in a bowl, put maybe a teaspoon, tablespoon of lemon juice over the top of it. That increases the cancer fighting effects of the kale because of the lemon juice. And then you massage it for like a couple minutes. It doesn't really take that much, and it breaks down the cellular walls and makes the nutrition of the kale more bioavailable, increases the cancer fighting properties with the lemon juice, and it makes it much more enjoyable as a salad. Are there any questions? Would anybody like this list?
Yeah, I already do a great percentage of that with a few exceptions. I am in with the mushrooms. I don't eat any mushrooms except as cooked. I've been sprouting things for years on and off. Right now, I don't have any sprouts going on, but I've got a corner that I set. I've got the jars. I've got a sprouting tray. I do the whole 9 yards. I've got a big bag of broccoli sprouting seeds, and I've got a few other vegetables that I sprout. I love to put them in with my salads. I buy spring mix, organic spring mix for my salads all the time. That's 50%. I buy organic Roman just because straight spring mix is a little too bright for me. So I mellow it with romaine, and then about 50% by volume is spring mix, which is kale and regular thaw and all those. I love that stuff. Yeah, so I'm already very much into what you're saying, but
That's
you and I
awesome.
differ. You and I differ on a few key points. I won't go into here, but yeah. So in general, I think instead of putting lemon in my green tea, I found something that really brightens up. That I bought a bag of organic whole cloves, and I've got a little one of those mulch, those bowls where you crush things. What are they called?
Mortar and pestle.
Mortar pestle. Yeah, I got a little mortar pestle right next to my tea thing, so I can take a few pinches of fresh cloves. They're whole. They're just organic, and I put them in the mortar pestle and grind them up. Then I put them in my tea, and it brightens it up really good. So I'm into very much most of what you said.
That's awesome. Yeah, the benefit of the lemon is that it increases the cancer fighting property of the green tea by 50%.
Right.
Spencer and Linda, did you have any questions or comments or anything, or did you want a copy of the list that I just showed? Okay, well, thanks for coming, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now. Thanks a lot. And if you're interested in getting involved in changing your eating lifestyle, I have a couple of Facebook groups. One is called Change Your Food, Change Life. And one is called Whole Food, Plant-Based, No Oil, Education and Support, Plant Pure Pod. And they are both on Facebook. Thanks a lot. Have a good day.